If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax. Today, I am joined by Sarah Banks, who is the author of the IVF Positivity Planner and a fertility support consultant she works a lot with fertility clinics on helping them provide better support and experiences of patients as they go through it. Am I right?
You are, yes. Hi, thank you for having me.
Would you just like to, before we get into all of that, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came in to do this work?
Yeah, of course. So, like many people, I think it's been born from a personal journey. So we struggled for 6 years with infertility, and we had to go through 2 rounds of IVF to get our IVF son. So we were one of the lucky ones that it did work for us, but we had 6 heartbreaking years of struggling to get to that point. Our first cycle of IVF was negative. So trying to deal with the emotions around that, because we thought that IVF would be a guarantee and that as soon as we started treatment, that would be it. So, having that knockback. And the reason I got into what I'm doing now is because of the journey that I had. So I realized when we were going through it, and we started our journey like 16 years ago now, which makes me feel very old. And there was no support at all. So thankfully it has improved a lot since we were on our journey, but there was very little support around. Nobody we knew was even struggling to get pregnant, let alone going through IVF. So once we'd been through it and, we thankfully had my son, I knew I wanted to do something to help people who'd been in the same position that I was, because there was no support. So I set up my business, I started the support group. So I run a support group for the local clinic that we went through, but also a national one, because I just felt like there wasn't that peer support for people. I do coaching to individuals, but a lot of the work I do now is coaching to clinics, because I felt that by supporting staff in clinics and helping them understand how to support their patients, then I could reach a wider group of people and just make that experience better. But as I say, it's come from my own personal journey and the feelings that I had while we were going through it and the lack of support around.
So how old is your son now?
He's 10 in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
So I know. So it's a long time since we went through our journey, but I was doing a talk yesterday, and the feelings that you feel when you're going through it are still very raw. So I was talking through my journey, and I still get choked up when I talk about having that negative result from our first round and finally getting that positive, because even though it's been 10 years, I still feel very deeply those emotions that I felt when we were going through it.
Yeah, that doesn't leave you, does it? And I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday that I was treating in clinic, who had been through a long journey, thankfully has her son now. But I think sometimes that trauma of miscarriage, IVF treatment can stay with you. And I think sometimes it can be assumed that once you have a child, everything is going to be okay. But actually, that trauma doesn't leave at all.
No, I think because it is so deep and there's so little understanding from people around you, you internalize it. You maybe don't get the support you need. And I remember somebody posting something who'd been through IVF as well, about hearing a pregnancy announcement and feeling triggered. And I'm the same, even now, if I hear a pregnancy announcement, there's still that little bit of me that gets triggered, thinking it was so easy for them.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate and so unfair that for some of us, that's not the case. And I think those emotions, I feel incredibly lucky that we were able to access IVF, because we wouldn't have my son if we hadn't. And we were even more fortunate that I felt pregnant with my daughter afterwards. And I don't really like to talk about her in this space, just because I feel almost guilty about it. But I don't believe we'd have either of them without having gone through IVF to have my son.
And so when you were going through treatment, what was it that what was the support like? What was missing for you?
Everything. The support, the nurses were great, but you were only in the clinic for a certain amount of time. As soon as you left the clinic, there was nothing. There was no peer support, which I think was probably actually the biggest thing that was missing for me, and the reason I set up the support groups. Because just to know that what you're feeling is normal and have your feelings validated. It was only afterwards that I was talking to someone else who'd been through IVF, and we both said, I wished I'd known you when we were going through it, because we'd have felt like this is normal and that somebody's not judging you for saying, oh, my friend's just announced she's pregnant and I feel really jealous. I think the peer support was the biggest thing, actually, just to have others who are going through it and understand fully that can support you. There was access to a counsellor from my clinic, but I think a lot of people that I speak to say that they don't go to see the counsellor for various reasons, that they maybe think that it will make them look like there's something wrong with them, or they don't feel they need it at that point. And I think it was just generally that lack of understanding in the wider world, which I think has improved but still isn't great. But that peer support was definitely the thing that I was missing the most.
Yeah, because I think lots of people don't necessarily have friends, or they don't want to reach out to friends. So they do feel like it is only them going through this experience. And that's a really hard place to be, isn't it?
It is, and you get to a certain age, and what generally tends to happen is you all get married, then everybody starts having children, and then people just can't understand, if they haven't struggled, they can't understand why you're so upset about something you don't have. You get friends then starting to do things as a group with their children, and we did tell a few of our friends, and as much as they could sympathise, they couldn't fully empathise, and also there was things that I remember being at a barbecue between two friends who were pregnant, and they were sat either side of me, and they were complaining about their pregnancy symptoms and moaning. And I just said to my husband, we need to go. And I just cried all the way home. And they knew what we were going through, but still just didn't have the understanding that actually that would be really upsetting to me. And I think you just don't get that support. And then especially after something like a failed cycle, they don't then understand why you're so upset again for something you didn't have. You weren't pregnant, you haven't had a miscarriage, and you feel like that grief isn't valid, and there's nobody there telling you it is valid. This is it feels like a loss of hope that you've gotten. It's perfectly valid. And I think we all need to have that around us.
Yeah. So how long after having your children did you start when did you set up the group? Was the group come before the Positivity Planner?
Yes, so the groups, it's been nearly 7 years now. I was just working out. So once I'd had my son, I retrained to be a coach. So I started doing my coaching. I fell pregnant naturally, and it was a huge shock. We assumed we'd just go through treatment again, so it was quite a shock. And so I rushed to complete my training so that I'd qualified before I had my daughter. And then when she was 1, I set up the group, so that was the starting point. So that was in 2016. The group started, and doing some of the coaching. And then since then, I've evolved on to doing a lot more of the clinic work. Obviously, over COVID, that took a bit of a hit because the clinic shut. But I launched the planner in 2019. So in October, it's 4 years old.
Wow.
Which I know it seems crazy because we had COVID in between.
Yeah, we lost
it feels like years. That's it. I've written off a couple of years.
And so tell us a little bit about why a planner, like what is the kind of theory behind it?
So for me, when we were going through treatment, I did see a coach because I felt really out of control. I felt like my life was on hold. I was stuck in a rut, and I wanted to do something to get out of it. I didn't want to just talk about it. I wanted an action plan, and I wanted to do something that would make me feel better. I'm quite an action-focused person. So for me, the best route forward was to create a plan and start working on these actions to make me feel like I was in control. So I'd wanted to make the planner for years before I actually did it. It'd been an idea that I'd been dreaming of and planning for a long time before I just thought I need to just do it and get it out there. But I wanted it to be something that combined journaling and space to reflect on things with something that helped people take action. So I didn't want it to just be a journal. I wanted it to be a planner to help people take control. And that was the key thing about it. And it's tricky because the title, having positivity, and it was something I sort of wrestled with for quite a while, because obviously positivity, when you're talking about fertility, can be a bit of you don't really know the right way to go. But for me, it was about positivity. It was about giving people hope that their life could be better, that they could cope through treatment and have a way to do that. So that's where it came from, really. I wanted it to have coaching questions to help them make changes and activities to help them take control, as well as the journaling and the being able to keep track of your treatment and things like that. So that was kind of the idea originally around it. And it's brilliant because the feedback I get is very much that that's what it's doing. So I love getting that because I know it's making a difference to people.
And so in it, is there prompts, or so there's prompts that take you through things to think about and things to plan?
Definitely. So there's a tracker, well, like a 3-month goal setter. So you can set your goals for the 3 months of using the planner, but every month there's a check-in. So a check-in about how your month has been, your goals for the next month. So it's helping you keep on track, but it's very much about keeping it small, so it's not too overwhelming. It's prompts on like a taking control guide, a relationship guide, a support goal. Sorry, so goals for taking control, relationships, and support, so that it's prompting you. So it's not this big overwhelming thing you have to complete. Each day there's prompts around helping you look for the positive. So things like how I took care of myself today, or what positive thing I'll do for myself tomorrow. I didn't want there to be loads of things that people had to fill in, because sometimes I find it overwhelming if I've got to list 5 things I'm grateful for, because I think, oh, as much as I'm grateful for things, it's the same things all the time. So it's about thinking of small steps you can take. There's daily journal prompts around keeping positive for the next day and taking care of yourself. But then there's weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, and then activities. So things that you love about yourself, or things that you've achieved, so you can focus on other areas, and ways for coping as a couple. So there's prompts around what 5 things you love about your partner and get them to do the same. So there's activities like that, but there are prompts, because I think it can feel overwhelming just looking at a blank page and trying to think of what to write.
And I guess then it means that you've got prompts that can be applicable to everybody, but then you can personalize it, because obviously everyone's going to respond to those prompts in a different way.
Exactly. And it's completely open. So if you're in a same-sex relationship, you can still use the planner because it's totally open. If you're going through treatment on your own, you can use it. There's 6 pages of relationships, but you can focus on other relationships in your life. But no, it's completely personalizable. Even the daily pages don't have dates on them, so that you don't, if you fill it in one day but not the next, it doesn't matter. You start the next day. But it's very much around helping you think in a more positive way. So the positive things you've done for yourself, the positive things you could do, but in a gentle, guiding way, rather than you must be positive kind of way.
And there's quite a lot of good research now, isn't there, into this idea of journaling and writing things down as being a really good way of, I don't know, like how you would describe it. You're probably better than me as a coach, but around kind of getting things out of your brain, getting them on the paper.
Yeah, it can be really cathartic writing down. So for a couple of reasons, sometimes I think just free writing means you can just get out some of those emotions, and it's out of your head and onto the page, and it's just therapeutic writing it down. But also you can start to spot patterns when you write things down. So one of the exercises is a negative thoughts pattern, and helping you reframe some of those things, because when you start writing them down, you start noticing that you're telling yourself certain things all the time. And once you can see that pattern, you can then start working on how you can turn that around, prove that those thoughts aren't helpful and they're not necessarily true. And I think it just sometimes writing things down, you almost, I think your mind can run away with you. And if you really thought about it, you'd think, I'm spiraling, and actually this isn't true. And when you write it down, it becomes a bit more apparent. Then I think you can think more logically and it's a bit more true, I guess. I can't think of the right way.
I know what you mean, because I guess it's about separating the emotion from the facts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because often what happens is that they get very jumbled up, and we see this a lot in clinic, where the emotion and the facts are jumbled up, and so it's very difficult to see the wood for the trees and what is actually happening. So when we support people through their rounds, often people are like, it's not going to work, it's all going wrong, and there's a lot of upset around. It's often around the numbers, when you're told you've got 6 follicles or whatever the numbers are. There's a lot of kind of, well, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
and this is a disastrous round. And we're always trying to separate that out, aren't we? Well, is it? Because actually we don't know that yet. And
Yeah.
6 is the potential 6 eggs, and we don't know how they're going to develop, so I guess when you're
Yeah.
writing all of that down, you might be able to see more what is kind of spiraling emotion,
Yeah.
understandably, and what is actually the reality of the situation. Because our brains are really quite cruel to us a lot of the time, aren't they? They tell us like
Oh,
stuff that
they
is
are.
really unhelpful.
Yeah, and when you're in a vulnerable state and you're emotional, you're bound to feel that more as well. And like you say, once you write that down, if you write down something like with your example, it's not going to work because I've only got 6 eggs. Well, then you can start saying, well, actually, no, I know somebody else, it can work with less. It's more about quality and not quantity.
Mm,
You could ask your consultant that, is that still a decent amount? Is there still a chance it could work? So you can then start to process what you're thinking and start to think, well, actually, that's not very helpful and it's not necessarily true. And yeah, you sort of stop that spiral and
mm,
start thinking about things a bit more clearly.
yeah.
So I think writing down is a good way of doing it. And I think sometimes if you don't have someone else you can talk to, or you feel you can't talk to them because they might judge you, you can write anything you want in a
Mm.
journal and hide it away. You don't have to show anybody. So you're not worrying about upsetting somebody. You can be completely honest in it.
Mm. And I always say the thing that we say, and whenever we do workshops or we have a community group as well, is that we always say there are so many different ways to support yourself through this process, and what is right for one person might not be right for another person. But the
Yeah,
thing to do is to kind of arm yourself with the knowledge of all the things that are out there,
yeah,
maybe try a few and see which one works for you, because what's right for me might not be right for somebody else. I can't meditate, but I can read a book, that kind of thing.
yeah,
And so I guess it's like having the awareness that this is available and this is how it works. Because for some people, they might be like, I can't do that. But for other people, it
yeah.
might be just the trick.
That's it. And I think that's why it's so important for clinics to have a range of support resources
Yeah.
because, like you say, not everybody wants to speak to a counsellor.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to see an acupuncturist. Not everybody wants to go and tell a support group everything. But it's about having a range of support options so that people can choose the right one for them. And I'd always say go and speak to a counsellor so you can see what it's like. But I just think having the options there for you just means you can make an informed decision about what is right for you and just make sure you get support. And it might be that having a support group there when you're going through your treatment is what you need, but then you want to book in with a counsellor for after, or
Mm,
you want to see your acupuncturist while you're going through treatment because of the physical and the talking benefits of it.
mm,
So you don't even have to just choose one. You can put all of them together. And I think it's just knowing that there's safe options for people. It's like a safe space for you and picking what's right for you.
And also I think having a kind of conscious plan for how you're going to look after your emotional and mental health as you go through it is really important, because there is all this kind of idea around preparation, like preparing your body, exercising, the nutrition, your drugs, the plan, what they're going to do. And sometimes I think the emotional well-being kind of mental health side can get lost or forgotten about. It's just kind of assumed that you're going to be all right as you go through it. And I think that that has changed, hasn't it? This recognition that there is trauma, there's anxiety, there's depression, there's huge statistics associated with fertility. So having a conscious plan before you get into that can be really helpful.
Oh, hugely. And I'd say it's as important as the physical
Yeah,
side is.
yeah,
I think a big thing that comes up, and you probably hear it as well, is this feeling out of control when
yes.
you're going through treatments. And you have to give all your control, really, of the treatment side to your clinic. And you don't have any control over what the outcome is. But I'm always saying to you can take control of lots of different things. You can take control of like the physical side, so lifestyle changes and things that you need to make, researching treatment. So from a physical point of view, there's a lot, but your mindset is so important, getting yourself in the right frame of mind. And that could be some of those coping techniques like meditating or journaling, or just distraction techniques like seeing friends that lift you up, or going for a walk, or reading. And I think it's just important to understand that, yes, you've got a plan in place. So having the support in place, knowing where you'll get that support. And that might be friends and family. it could be booking to see a counsellor, whatever is right for you. But I think it is more important that more focus is put on that. And a lot of what I do with the clinics is reminding them how important that is. Because actually, if you are struggling to cope emotionally going through treatment, you're much more likely to stop treatment. You're much more likely to take part in activities that maybe you feel reduce your stress but are harmful to treatment, so smoking, drinking, things like that. You're much more likely to do things like that, and you're much less likely to go through another cycle of treatment if you've really struggled emotionally through the first one. And it's really important that patients feel supported to have the treatment that they need.
So what is the work that you do with the clinics? Do you do it with clinics across the whole country, or is it local to where you are?
Across the world. I've been to India.
Amazing.
Yeah, I went to India, which was great. So what I do is various things. So training to them about the emotional impact of infertility and how they can support their patients. And the nurses tend to be great when you speak to nurses, but I was talking to a group of nurses yesterday at an event, and what they were saying was, as much as they know this, it becomes day to day for them. They see patient after patient, and to them it's just their job, whereas to each patient it is their whole world they're going through. So I do training about the emotional support services and how to better support, so the behaviours and things like that and processes they can put in place. But I also look at their overall emotional support strategy, about where they can improve and things like that. So there's lots of work I do with clinics all over the world around how they can improve the experience their patients have when they're going through treatment.
Yeah, and that's a really big change, I think. I've definitely seen it in clinics, that recognition, and they need to do something about that. Seems like it is changing.
It is, but I think there's still a long way to go. As I say, I don't think COVID helped, because I was having a lot of conversations before, and then since then, everybody was busy trying to catch up. Unfortunately, what I still hear a lot when I speak to clinics is, oh no, we've got a counsellor, so we're covering emotional support. And I keep saying it's not just about that, it's about every member of staff being supported, because if you ring your clinic and the receptionist is really sort of blunt with you, is really off, isn't very helpful or supportive, then it doesn't make a difference if you've got a counsellor. That patient already feels like they're not supported, doesn't want to ring. So if there's a problem or they can't remember the medication and what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be much more reluctant to ring up to talk to you. So it doesn't matter if you've got a counsellor. It's about every member of staff and every point of contact that patients have with you feeling like you care about them and that you're there to support them. So I think there's still a long way to go in changing that mindset that it's okay just to have access to a counsellor, because most people can't even access a counsellor.
Yeah.
They're usually off-site, they're private booking. When they need an appointment, they can't always get in. So it's very difficult, and if they're relying on that being their only support, then they're not doing a good enough job of supporting their patients.
And often it's only one session. We often see people who just they're offered one session and that's it, which we know is not even touching the surface.
No, because by that point, they've almost just started talking about what the top level problem is. They haven't even got into anything. And then if they're paying a lot of money for those sessions afterwards, it's difficult. But I just think there needs to be a bit of a mindset change around how important it is to emotionally support patients and signpost the support they offer, because quite often people might have support but not actually tell patients it's there or encourage them to access it. And the only time they then think about accessing it is when they're at a really low point and they're really struggling.
Yeah. And so you tell us a little bit about your group. So is it an online community group that you run? How does that work?
So I have a few. So I've got a local one, which is for the clinic that I went to. And then I have two support groups. Now it started off as one, but what I found was there's such a wide range of experiences and points of treatment. So I have one called TTC Support UK. But I found that I was getting quite a lot of people, other people joining. There's some who are very early and they're trying to conceive journey, like first, second month, but some who are 5 or 6 rounds into IVF, and the needs are very, very different. And it was quite triggering when some people who were newly starting out were posting certain things. And as much as I tried to manage it, it's very difficult when there's such a wide range. So I've then set up another one, which is IVF Support. And they're both on Facebook. They're both closed groups. they're full of amazing people who are so supportive of one another. You have to kind of manage it, because you're always going to get some people who, some sort of negativity at times, but actually we haven't had that for a long time now. I sort of manage it, and people are very supportive, but I think it's just important to have that group where it's away from people who don't get it, where they can get that peer support that I felt I was missing. And then the IVF one is much more for people who are on their IVF journey, whether that's the first or the fifth round, but they're at a point where it's not just first, second or third month of trying to get pregnant, just so that the support they get and need is very different.
Okay, well, I will put all of those groups on the show notes, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. I can send you all of those.
That would be great. And to buy the IVF planner, I mean, it should be available in clinic, shouldn't it?
It should be, and that is what I am hoping for, and I am working towards. But it comes back to this thing of clinics understanding why support is so important and placing the emphasis on it. So yes, it's something that I've been trying to work on for a few years. And there's very much positivity around, yes, I agree, it would be, but then it's kind of putting budgets behind it and things. So yes, I think my ultimate ideal would be that patients are given it as part of their treatment plan, and that does happen in some clinics. Some clinics are doing that. But I think as a support resource, to be able to be gifted that from your clinic as you're going through treatment would be...
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be lovely, and it would really highlight their understanding of why it's so important to have support as well. And so I am working on it.
Good luck. And if people want to buy it, is it available on Amazon? Or, I mean, everything's on Amazon. Is it on Amazon?
It is. So it's on Amazon, it's on Etsy, and then it's on my website, which is www.positivityplanners.com. So you can get it in all of those places. There's also loads of pictures, loads of information about it. And I always say, if you're not sure if it's right for you, send me a message and I will always get back to people about it as well. It's there because I want it to help people. So
can I just ask, is it only for people going through IVF, but could it be used by people who are trying to conceive without IVF?
It can be. So there is about 12 pages, which is treatment specific, but those things can also, because within that there's questions to ask your doctor. So if you're going through other treatment, you can use it. There's a timeline in there. So out of the 186 pages, there's only 12 of them that are treatment specific. So the rest of it can be used by people who are trying to get pregnant. And when I was creating it, it was, did I label it as a trying to conceive planner or an IVF planner? And I ummed and ahed over it, but there is only a small section which you can still use for a lot of that treatment section for other things as well. So no, the majority of it is about coping on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. That is so helpful. I know loads of people will be really interested who listen to this. So I'll put all the details on, and then people can contact you if they've got any further questions. But good luck with getting that into clinics, because I think you're right. I think it would be so good, wouldn't it, if the clinics had it as part of their treatment. You start treatment with them and that's something that they offer. I think it would be amazing.
Yeah, it's there as a support resource. So yeah, and and as I say, if anybody wants to know more, if anybody is struggling, I always say get in touch with me. I'm more than happy just to answer any questions and help out and support, point in the direction of other support. And then I don't know if I'm okay to mention, I don't know when it'll be going out, but I'm running a webinar about taking control on the 23rd of October.
Okay.
So it's at 8:00, and I'll be sharing on my socials where they can sign up for the webinar. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, I will try. I'll tell you what, I'll try and get it out before then so we can plug it.
Oh, thank you.
Because I'm sure that will also be really helpful for lots of people. So let's make that happen.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all about ways you can take control when you're going through treatment, because when I asked my support communities what they needed help with, that was the thing that overwhelmingly stood out, that they just want to feel back in control when they're going through treatment.
Yeah, we hear that so often.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will put all the details at the end of here. Thank you so much for your time. It's really lovely to meet you, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of interest in that. So thanks again.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to chat with you.
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.